Know your gender. How to deal with being misgendered. I'm going to start this one off with a quote from my trans idol, Alok Vaid-Menon. Beyond the gender binary is the text that this comes from. Some gender nonconforming people are non-binary, and some are men and women. It depends on each person's experience. Two people can look similar and be completely different genders. Gender is not what people look like to other people. It is what we know ourselves to be. No one else should be able to tell you who you are. That's for you to decide. What is gender identity? Simply put, gender identity is how you identify. The pronouns you use, for example, they, them, she, her, he, him, Zer. It is also what you know yourself to be. It is this deep feeling that the way you were born is not aligning with what you believe yourself to be. It is not confined to gender norms. It doesn't follow a gender binary, and it isn't determined by biological sex. Coming out in all environments. I've ranked these from easiest to hardest, starting off meeting new people. Meeting new people is a really risk-free way of coming out, especially if you're in supportive areas. There isn't really this pressure to be someone you're not because there's no reason to worry about what other people think when you're never really going to see them again. The next is friends. Usually, especially as a closeted person, you surround yourself by people who will be supportive of you. Next is relationships. In relationships, it can be quite difficult especially when starting a sexual relationship with someone, it requires more discretion than normal. Work is next up as you are exposed to people outside of your own political views, and you don't really know who's safe and who isn't because you don't really get to know people at work that well. Next is school. You have dangers of being bullied, ridiculed, and especially in some states, having rights taken away from you. The hardest one, in my opinion, is family. Family is who you're tied to, whether it's brothers, sisters, fathers, mothers. It is really difficult to come out to those people, particularly because those are the people that you're mostly looking for support from. Being misgendered. Some of the steps to being misgendered are staying calm and correcting people. For instance, if someone says he when you go by she, her, simply after they say he, just correct them and say she. Works flawlessly. The second is to be respectful. If you aren't respectful, then they're not going to give you that luxury. If you aren't direct about it, then they're just going to think it's not that big of a deal. The most important two things are that you don't let it get to you. You have to be confident in who you are, and you have to be able to identify as yourself proudly and loudly. It is also about picking your battles. For instance, when you're talking to a customer in a customer service job, it's much less important what they think of you, so there's no real reason in correcting them. One of the biggest things to think about when you're being misgendered is taking care of yourself. You can't let it get to you because you have to be confident in your identity. You have to pick your battles, especially when it's at work, specifically when we're talking about customer service jobs. Finding supportive groups is another really important step to take. I'm in a position where I am part of a very supportive group, and everyone that I've added to that group, I have gone through rigorous vetting to make sure that they aren't going to misgender other people in that group that are gender nonconforming. You have to just ignore the haters. You know who you are, and don't let haters invalidate who you know yourself to be. Another really important thing is to know your limits. You can't expend extra energy that isn't needed, especially in customer service situations. Strategies to use when correcting. You have to educate people when it's safe. You can't go spouting stuff off to people who are going to harm you, rape, ridicule you, So you have to know when it's safe to do that, which can be difficult because you don't always know someone's views. You have to avoid using passive language, for instance, saying you guys or dude is another one. You have to make sure that you are checking with people that their pronouns are being used correctly. You have to set boundaries and be direct about them. It's very important in mental health to set boundaries. And my favorite method is following the misgendering with the correct pronoun. If someone says he when you go by she, simply say she after they say he. It works better than you'd think. Observe whether it is by mistake or on purpose, especially in a work environment. If it's on purpose, you have the freedom, especially in Michigan, to go to HR. And again, choosing your battles. Conclusion. I have been misgendered countless times, and I'm at a point in my life where, especially at work, I don't let it get to me. I know who I am, and I know who I'm trying to be, and it has been a game changer researching these things because now I have more tools under my belt. Thank you.